Welcome to another episode of the Jobology podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and today my guest is a friend of mine that I used to work with in insurance sales. His name is Matt, and he's going to talk to us all about what insurances we need, what we don't need, and we're even going to share some inside stories. So without further ado, Matt. First off, I just want to say thank you for being with me, Matt.
Hey, what's up, bud? Thanks for having me.
Man, it's been a minute since we've caught up, but I'm kind of excited to get to see where you're at nowadays and what's going on. As I had mentioned a little bit previous, me and Matt are ex-coworkers, and you are actually the first guest I've had on that is an ex-coworker of mine talking about a job that we've done. So I had an ex-coworker in a previous episode, Human Design. Go check that out. And this time I didn't do human design, so now we're talking to Matt who does insurance sales, which I used to do, and we used to work at the same place. So we're going to kind of get into that, and I'm going to let him do most of the talking. I'm going to try and restrain myself the best I can on my side. But the way we always like to get started here on Jobology is we like to get a baseline set. So first thing I want to know is why insurance sales? Like, is it something that you just fell into, or is it something that you enjoy?
Yeah, so I actually just completely randomly fell into it. I left AT&T and T, and I posted on Facebook if anybody knew where anybody was hiring. And
Classic.
Janine, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So Janine actually reached out to me. She said, "Hey, you can interview with my boss. I'm sure he has an open spot." So I went interviewed with Justin, and that was it, man. The last 6 years of this,
Yeah.
7 years, 7 years.
7 years in the biz. Okay. And Justin was our old boss. I want to side note real quick. I want to get him on to talk about me as an employee, like as a bot, like how bad of an employee was I, because I was awful.
Amazing.
Like insurance sales were not my thing. Yeah, I just want him to like just negative Brandon out. Just, oh God, he's horrible. He just talked all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know that's why I do this now.
Yeah, if he didn't, if his old man wasn't upstairs, he wouldn't have been downstairs.
Oh no. No, no, no. Brandon, yeah, my dad used to work at the play. Yeah, no, I was out. I was out. Um, so now that we kind of the why, it seems to be that's a similar thing for a lot of people of like, hey, I needed a job. This was something that was hiring. It seemed like a fit. I'm gonna do that. And then kind of again, you kind of mentioned the how of like I put on Facebook and somebody said that. But is it that simple of like, I mean, obviously you have to interview and stuff like that, I'm sure. So is there like a actual physical how you get the job as an insurance agent?
Yeah, so I mean the how is like, I mean, obviously my thing is you have to know somebody. That's the big thing. Knowing people, it's one of the greatest assets you can have. So I mean, once you get your foot in the door and you know somebody, get the interview process that gets going. It's just I didn't realize how daunting becoming an insurance salesman was going to be. Like the full process, like the interview went okay. It's a normal interview. It's the licensing part and like the knowledge part about afterwards. That's where it gets you.
Yeah, that's the part that I couldn't do. So that's why I don't
Yeah.
do insurance sales anymore. Is when they go, all right, time to get licensed. I was like, oh, tests? No, thank you. Can't do that. So how is it the from what you remember of doing the insurance test now that it's been probably a few years at this point, is it something that like you took a lot of time to do, multiple chances, or like was it, hey, I hit it and we're good?
No, absolutely not. That was so hard. Yeah, it was studying, constant studying, constant studying. Books, paperworks, websites. We did like 50 hours of Mike Russ, which is like a study guide for the test. And then the test itself actually took 4 times. Yeah, well, 3 times, excuse me, 3 times. I took it 3 times. I ended up taking the Mike Russ School. It's a weekend class that you can go, kind of teaches you the ins and outs and breaks everything down a lot more clearly than like just reading a book. I contribute that to like a big part of me passing that test.
Yeah, is it like the class, is it more like really teaching you the information or is it more teaching you how to beat the test?
So it's actually a little bit of both. I mean, because you have to be knowledgeable on this test because they ask the same question 15 different ways. So they just broke it down in like ways that are easier to remember. Like, this, we sell commercial line insurance.
I was going to get to that because I think, well, I used to sell workers' comp. Let's not get crazy. Like I was very niche, very like, hey, this I can do this one thing, but try and get me to do all these other things. No, thank you. But is it? That's what I was gonna. I forgot to mention up top is like what kind of insurance you're dealing with.
Yeah, so that was like the big thing was because for so long we're selling the insurance and learning these commercial lines, and then you get hit with like, oh, you got to know boat insurance, and you got to know homeowners insurance and stuff we never sold. So it was like we're not knowledgeable in that, and I think that's was like the big thing for us.
Gotcha. So that's like, hey, I know this stuff because I've been doing it, I've been selling it. So even though necessarily I wasn't studying hardcore on these things, I know it just from my daily use of it. But then once you're like, oh, cool, yeah, I've never sold a boat policy, but now you got to know 5 questions on boat policies. It's like, oh, brother, how am I gonna get these ones right? Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
And then right now, what kind of insurance are you doing right now?
I'm still doing commercial lines. That's my bread and butter. You know how it is.
And then for the layman out there, what if somebody's like, what's commercial lines? What does that even mean?
Commercial lines is businesses, so like plumbers, electricians, contractors, people along those lines. You know, basic stuff like that. That makes sense.
Okay, so protecting people building things, people doing commercial projects, not necessarily like private sector, obviously.
Exactly. Exactly.
Gotcha. And then I guess that's the path, huh? I was gonna say, is there like a path? Do you go to school for it? Did you? But I mean, obviously, it's like, hey, no, that was my path. My path was I signed up and saw this job opportunity, and then went for my testing.
Yeah, it's really the whole thing is trial by fire. There's nothing that I mean, there's nothing that's going to prepare you for getting in there, dealing with customers day to day, follow ups. You know what I mean? Like you just that's just trial by fire. Just jump in and go.
Yeah, learn by not selling or selling, either one,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes learn more by not selling. Like, oh wait, hey, this is what I'm messing up on. Got it. Okay. That was
Yeah,
more
right.
my path. I was like, let me see how I can not sell these policies and what I can learn from it.
Yeah.
And then get yelled at for not hitting, certain quotas. But hey, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Where typically, so little backstory, things are going to be a little different from when me and Matt were working together than what he's doing currently. Since COVID, there's been a lot of changes in the industry and a lot of
Yeah, oh
changes
yeah.
in not having to go to an office or having to go to an office, or companies going, hey, we don't want these offices anymore, I'm not paying to have this building. So
Right.
what does an average day look like now for an insurance salesman?
So a lot of them are. I mean, a lot of sales positions are being remote now, but we're back at the office. We're so few people that I mean, there's 6 of us back there. So we're back in the office. So it's every day I'm in 7 o'clock, 7 to 3:30, and then it's just yeah.
So typical 8 hour shift with the lunch break, and then
Yeah.
our good old lunch breaks, fun times there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
right.
anyways, yeah, great. Sometimes look to half an hour turns into an hour, turns into an hour and a half, and you get yelled at.
Turns into a yeah, get me on that.
That's a different story. So coming in at 7, is it like, hey, I sit down and I get right onto the phone and start dialing? Am I, hey, I got to answer all these emails first? Like, what does the typical morning look like for you?
Yeah, so usually when I get in, it's emails, going through from previous day and making sure everything's caught up, or you get alerts for this person needs a renewal, this piece of person needs a certificate. So you try to do that as much as you can, and then the phone starts ringing. Everything's warm leads. So that's all incoming. And so basically pick it up from a lead source. We quote it out through whatever carrier is going to be the cheapest, and the process keeps going.
Gotcha. Okay, so definitely it seems maybe a little different in the sense that I think a lot of insurance places are like, hey, here's your book, start calling all these numbers, cold calling people. This seems more like warm leads coming in, and at least then I feel like you have a chance to sell that person as opposed to, just dialing on the phone and being like, hey, you ready to buy insurance? I'm like, I don't need insurance.
Yeah, if it was cold calling, that's not the route. That's honestly the worst route I could possibly think of.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty tough. After we kind of knock out that, and then is it just from the rest of the day, hey, I'm just trying to get sales done, or is it like, hey, I try and parse out my time a little different where like I'm focusing on sales here, I'm focusing on returning emails here, I'm focusing on, a little bit of me time here. What is kind of the average breakdown, would you say?
So now it's like you're answering emails constantly throughout the day, people coming through. We use a text line service. So we're actually texting most of our clients because honestly, I mean, it's 2022. It's the easiest way to get about. People aren't checking their emails constantly.
Nobody wants to talk on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody's talking on the phone. So yeah, it's just taking calls, quoting leads out, answering emails when you get a chance to answer them. And then honestly, there's not much downtime. It's different from how it used to be. I mean, where we were at, there was 18 of us, and then where I'm at now, there's 6 people. So everybody's busy with their own thing. So it's constant flow of stuff coming in.
Okay. And then set is 7 to 3:30. I'm assuming that's because you have East Coast clients as well.
That's the big thing is most of our clients are East Coast, Texas East. That's honestly where we get most of our clients coming in. So the earlier we get in, the better, because that way, those people are calling. It's there, 10 o'clock.
They're they're ready to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And then is there a, this might be tough, or at least maybe you could break this down a little bit better for me and for everyone else because I don't necessarily remember. But how does like the pay structure work? Is it, hey, you get paid salary and then bye, see you later, that's what you get? Or is it like, no, based on how many sales you get, you'll get a commission or you'll get bonuses? Like how does your specific pay structure work?
Yeah. So how it breaks down is we get an hourly wage. So obviously we get our hourly, so we're there for 40 hours a week. But then there's also a commission breakdown. So we have a quota of how many sales we need to get, and once you hit that certain quota, it's a certain percentage of your fees that you put on. And then once obviously you go above that quota, the percentage increases, and then it just kind of depends on. The big thing is broker fees that we put on. We're getting paid out on that, so that's kind of like.
So that's something you determine, or is that like a set thing from the company of like, hey, you have to put a fee of X on, or is it like, hey, if I feel like I can sell myself at an extra 1,000 on top of it, I'm gonna take advantage of that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the big thing is it's up to your discretion, or my discretion, I should say. But you really got to take into account that a lot of these people are starting new businesses, new plumbers, new contractors, and they're trying to keep their overhead down as well. And the last thing I want is to charge someone a ridiculous amount of money, for them to get their feet wet and get their dreams going as well. And so it's kind of hard. You have to make money. Obviously, I have to eat, but you always want to try to do the best by somebody, and make sure you're not doing anybody. There's people in the insurance industry who definitely take advantage of being able to do that. But I mean, that just comes down to morality at that point.
Yeah, I feel like the industry can have somewhat of like a slimy connotation to it, kind of like, car salesmen. As we've talked in an episode about car salesmen, they kind of dispelled that rumor too of like, it's not everyone's this slimy salesman, just trying to make a quick buck kind of thing. It's actually kind of like you said, like, hey, it's small businesses starting out. I can't go in and be like, all right, pay me half of what money you have to start your business just for this insurance policy. Like, okay, gotcha. So it's more of a like trying to find that sweet spot. Now, if by chance you get, a company, Amazon calls and says, hey, I need this, come up, I'm jacking that thing up.
Oh yeah, I sold a policy yesterday. It was the guy was grossing 3 million doing roofs. He's going down to Florida to do some roof work. Was Yeah, so he's grossing 3 mil. And so the thing was, he was leaving his current company. He wasn't happy with their customer service, so he's coming over to us. And he's like, honestly, I was paying. I think he was paying like $26,000 for his last policy. And so even with my broker fee that I put on, we got it down to 20,000. Same limits, they matched everything on, so it was like a win-win for him and a win-win for both of us, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, I'm saving you a bunch of money, but a little do you know, I'm making a bunch of money on my side. Nice. Okay, I like that. Um, and so is that, are you hourly, salary? How's that breakdown?
So I'm currently hourly now. I was doing like a 1099 thing for a while when we were working from home because it was a little bit easier. Obviously, trying to keep track of everybody's time and working from home and who's actually on there. So once we're back in the office, it just went back to hourly, which was nice.
Okay, gotcha. I think when I started, it was salary, and then they started realizing like, wait, this doesn't really make sense for insurance salesman to be salary because that just not doesn't work. So okay, so hourly there, and then you're getting paid your commissions like once a month, I'm assuming.
That's every 2 weeks. So how it falls? Yeah, so it's a month worth of your commission, and it's paid on every other check, if that makes sense. So you're just back.
Yeah, so you, but not so crazily back that you're back like a whole month. It's just ends up being a couple of weeks. Okay, um, and then is I'm dental, uh, medical, all that jazz.
Yeah, you get the normal fun package that businesses give you. You get medical, dental, vision, 401k. Yeah.
Okay. And then something I kind of like to talk about or that we like to discuss here is what I call the hidden perks. So obviously we know perks and benefits kind of like we just talked about, but is there a hidden perk to the job that like maybe the average person wouldn't see? So something, I mean, I don't know. I talked to somebody recently that was a nurse and like they were like, "Oh yeah, one of the hidden perks is we can have a 3-day work week because we work 12-hour shifts. So if I don't want to work, so it's something maybe something like that that the average person doesn't see that you're like, oh, this is a cool perk or benefit of the job."
The biggest thing, honestly, the it's so random. The biggest perk is knowing people in the construction trade. So so I developed this repertoire with people and these relationships. I'm working on their policy for years, and there's local guys that I've quoted out, people I've called talk to, and it's like my network of, like I was saying in the beginning, of knowing people has just expanded exponentially. And
Gotcha.
so, like, yeah, exactly. So I have better rates on like a roof. I have a friend who does roofing in Anaheim. Yeah, so he's just like, yeah, if you need anything like that, it's just those weird things. Or if I ever go to like out of state, there's people, there's people like, hey, well, we got this hookup at this hotel, or hey, we did work on this spot, so I can get you a cheaper rate over here.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And then I was thinking, as you were kind of saying that, like another thing that I'm thinking of just off the top is like, it doesn't even have to necessarily go as far as hiring somebody, but if you're just trying to fix something at your house and you're like, man, I got a quick question. I just talked to this roofer yesterday. We made a great connection. I bet you I could call him and just be like, hey, if I'm trying to XYZ, what do I do? And they might give you a quick answer as opposed to charging you out, thousands of dollars to do it.
Absolutely. Actually, just happened like maybe 2 months ago. One of the guys I had sold, he's a plumber. I've worked with him for a few years now. And my toilet's been clogging. We couldn't figure it out. What? Right. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
So we were trying to get it. I have kids, man.
Oh yeah, kids. I've seen what you could do.
So I got to the point where like the plungers weren't working. I was like, try to snake it, all this stuff. And so he gave me this like concoction of like different chemicals and stuff to pour
Mhm.
down. It cleared it up. Honestly, I
Oh
messaged
wow.
him when I was at work, tried it the evening when I got home, and it cleared my toilet up. And it was the craziest thing.
Dang, nice. Okay. And then again, kind of as you mentioned, another perk that I'm like off the top is that you can kind of control your own broker fees. Like, that way it's not a set thing of like, oh, I'm forced into this, but you can kind of maneuver it how you want. Do you know off the top of your head what's the biggest broker fee you've ever put on a policy?
Yeah, I think 12,500.
Whoa. Okay. Dang. I was not. I was gonna say 1,200 and 12,500. Wow. All right. All righty. That's more than I was expecting. That's pretty cool. Good job.
Yeah, I've sold some pretty gnarly ones.
Nice. Yeah. And then how does you kind of mentioned the 1099 thing at one point, but like how does your job hierarchy work currently? So like do you have a team under you? Do you report to somebody? Is it all you all the time?
Yeah, so it's all me all the time. I mean, you've worked with Justin, so you know his personality. For people who don't, he's very much, hey, here's what I need you to do, get it done, and I'm gonna be over here getting what I need to get done.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like micromanagers and then there's like the kind of hands off, and I would say Justin falls more to like the hands off kind of side of like, hey, I'm gonna let you do it. You seem to know what you're doing, go for it.
That's absolutely it. Is if you have a question, ask me. If it's something I can do, cool. Other than that, you're basically on your own. Take care of what you need to take care of. You're grown up.
Gotcha. Um, we're gonna kind of slide into like the next portion. I feel like we're moving through this very quickly, but hey, you know what? Some go faster, some go slower. It is what it is. Um, if you were to, let's say somebody would get hired today or tomorrow, you got a new person coming in tomorrow, you're the trainer. Is there something and a piece of advice you would give them, being 7 years deep that you're like, hey, if I wish somebody would have told me this day one?
Don't overthink things. That's don't overthink. Yeah, don't overthink things. It's a lot easier than you think it is. It's the thing with commercial insurance is you have to know certain class codes, like, oh, you're a plumber, or say drywall or carpentry work, because there's interior carpentry. Carpentry also falls under framing, or framing also falls under carpentry. So you have to know the class codes and generate a quote, send documents. It's very daunting at first, a lot of jargon that you're not aware of, but it's so simple. It's just don't overthink it. Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Oh, like that. I could kind of compare it to with like codes and stuff like that. What I would think like a check, like a reg, like a I don't what's the word I'm looking for. The person that works at the grocery store that scans your things, but it has to know like all the UPC codes or all the things for the different fruits or veggie, the different codes. It's kind of like that because I was trying to like run through in my head like, do I remember what roofing is? Nope. Do I remember what the drywall code is? Nope. So it just zooms if you're not using it. So it's kind of that's a good thing of like insurance can seem complicated. Most people think insurance is extremely complicated. But once you're actually in it and doing it, and you're like, oh, there's a pattern here, or oh, there's similarities with everything. It's not necessarily so just dauntingly confusing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then let's say, we can kind of take that new employee and let's say it's Matt. You're going back in time and you are giving yourself a piece of advice day one, more specific to your journey. Is there something, that you might tell your own self, knowing where you're at now?
Hmm. If I can tell my past self something,
Because I think like the advice for the new employee can be general, but maybe there's like a specific thing that along your path. Hey, you're gonna hit this stumbling block, or hey, you're gonna, this might be something you're thinking now, but it's not like that at all.
yeah. Honestly, I think I would tell myself to pay attention to the people who are there for you on this journey of what I'm doing, because I've definitely made mistakes and followed people where their loyalties didn't lie, with me, and others did. And in those times where things could have gone significantly smoother for me on this journey in this career path, they took a rockier turn because of that.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, I like that of like, hey, make sure you're aligned with the right people. Like make sure it's not, you're not just following somebody because they're convincing or hey, this, seems like the right thing at the time, but like gotcha.
We're in sales. People have golden tongues, and even as a salesman, sometimes you think people are more trustworthy than they are, and then that's just what happens.
So a couple questions that I have, maybe related more to insurance than just, the general jobology questions here. Um, is there a type of insurance, maybe, not necessarily specific to you, but maybe specific to you, that you're like, gotta have it? And then is there a type of insurance where you're like, probably don't gotta have
Um, I mean, honestly, the big thing, if you're going into like a business, if you're some sort of contractor, handyman, anything like that, a lot of people think they could skate by without general liability insurance. That is your biggest savior should there be any flaws, because I've seen people's company go under because they didn't want to purchase a policy, and they call me, oh my goodness, I just did $15,000 worth of damages. My company's going to go bankrupt. I don't know what to do. And I think that's honestly, if you're going to start a business, a lot of people think, oh, that's fine. I work for friends. Oh, I've never had a claim.
I'm not gonna mess up.
Exactly, exactly. Just prepare for the inevitable. It's going to happen, and just be prepared for it. Just because you start this journey and you start, you're following your dreams, open up your own business, you do everything for it to go under.
Yeah, just because that one, if you just had that one policy, it would have saved you. hmm Okay. And then is there one that you're like, well, you could probably do without that?
This is going to be a hot take. I don't really care for life insurance.
Okay. I think that's, yeah, I could see that. I think from what I'm starting to like, because maybe this is TikTok's influence on me or whatever, but yeah, of like people being like, hey, just so you know, like life insurance is like for when you're living. And I mean, I don't know how correct that is or not. I'm not trying to give people insurance advice right here. But yeah, I think that that might be one that either is not really useful for a lot of people or they don't necessarily know what to do with it exactly. And so it becomes useless to people.
Right. Well, I mean, in the general sense of how it's been portrayed, anyways, and how it's being sold is, hey, when you pass, your family's taken care of, funeral expenses, you're paying into this. But I mean, my big thing was I had a friend of mine whose dad, he turned 70, 70, so it's somewhere in the ballpark, 70. And basically, that was it. They canceled his life insurance that he's been paying on for 25 years. And they said, yeah, you've aged out. At this point, we can't accept you as a client anymore. And it's like, well, what did you pay all this time for?
So now I'm getting punished because I'm healthy because I didn't die.
That's yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, I mean, there's obviously different types of life insurance, but it's just for me, it's just
Seems a little useless. Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna ask you a question that I've got a million times, and I'm sure you get a million times. But for our listeners who don't know this question, what is a ghost policy?
a ghost policy is when it comes to say like a workers' comp policy. If you don't have any W-2 payroll employees, work comp is obviously not. Work comp covers your W-2 employees in case of an accident on the job site. So ghost policy is basically, how do you say this properly? It's a piece of paper.
I mean, I've said it probably improperly a lot of times, but you could try to do it properly.
Yeah. So basically, it's just the way I look at it is it's a work comp policy that's not going to offer any coverage and it's not going to do anything for you. It's basically that it's covering nobody, which is why it gets the ghost policy. It's covering nobody, but it meets the standards for certain states require you to get onto a job site or you're trying to pick up a paycheck and they need these certain insurances. That's what a ghost policy is really going to cover for it.
Yeah. So the way that I would always say it or like put it a lot of times is like, hey, if a lot of people that we would sell to or that are calling for insurance are, I do the job by myself. I have no employees. It's me out there. There's no other guys. And I'm up on the roof and it's just me. And if I get hurt, I'll go to the doctor. I have health insurance. I have whatever. I don't need this to go through workers' comp. But in a lot of states or a lot of cases, in order to finish a job, they need to check your insurance or you need to provide proof of insurance. And one of the things that people will ask for is workers' comp. You can sit there and debate with them all day. Hey, I don't have any employees. I don't need workers' comp. But all they're going to say is, nope, you know, I see right here that I need to show these three forms. So they come to us and go, hey, here's my situation. I didn't get hurt. I don't plan on, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm done with this job, maybe even, but I just need to show them a piece of insurance that says I have this policy. What's the cheapest way I can get it? And that's kind of the way that I would present it is like, hey, it's not going to cover anything. If you were to get hurt, you can't use it, but it will get you this paycheck. And it will kind of, it's for lack of a better term, I guess a loophole would be a way to describe it of like, hey, it's a loophole to get around having workers' comp. You still have it, but it's not covering anything.
Exactly.
But I used to get that all the time because I would say, okay, it's a go. Well, what's a ghost policy? It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's not covering
Yeah.
specters, so it's something different.
or work on cemeteries.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Here's a new question that I've started to ask people that I actually really enjoy. Is there something that you were hoping I would ask you? Or is there something that you're like, oh, I'm ready for this question that Brandon's going to ask and that I don't ask? Because that's the only way I'm going to get better is learning. Hey, you should have asked this, ding dong.
I guess not. No. No, I honestly no. I feel like you covered all the bases as far as like questions you can ask me, and I feel like was able to answer your questions. The ones that you're asking makes it a little easier for me to answer and have things going.
Well, the hardest part on this one today has been holding back my own information because, like, a lot of the times with my guests, and maybe this is a little behind the curtains, behind the scenes for you guys if you like that, um, is I try and do a minimal research. So I want to have an idea of what I'm talking about, but I don't want to overtake the conversation. And then you say something, and I go, "Oh yeah, I read the, that's not interesting. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear from the guest, not from the host." So I try and do, minimal enough that I can ask intelligent questions, but not so much that I'm overtaking the conversation. In this situation, I didn't have to do read. Like I already know this stuff. So now the hardest part is just reining it back and kind of asking questions of like, what is the, even though I know what it, but you got to ask for everyone else. So it's been different experience for sure. I haven't talked to anybody doing a job that I've already done. So this is new for me. So I like that.
First, baby.
That's right. Um, the hand of the king. Remember that? That's another secret story. I still have that somewhere
I
over
hope you
there.
still have that. I was gonna
Oh
say, I
yeah.
hope you still have
Hold on, crew. I'll be right back.
that.
I got it right here. Bingo. Oh, bingo.
Yes,
Camera. Hand of the king,
nice,
baby. You know it.
super
Um,
cool.
yeah, that's I mean, and that's I think my biggest takeaway from the insurance industry, and this might be for some people the same, is I made good friends. Like I didn't really take much from, me. I didn't turn the insurance job into anything crazy. Didn't start my own insurance company, didn't, bounce around, didn't go up the ladder. But I made great connections with people and friends that I'm like, oh man, I like this is what it's really about.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, no, hands down. That was some of the best friends I made were at those places.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's another perk too of like, hey, if you can find a job that allows you a little free will where it's like, as long as you're getting your stuff done, and keeping your conversations, Brandon, to a minimum, then then you'll be fine. You'll be successful. And like, hey, if you want to, you get in early and you're like, let's go for a Starbucks run. That's how you make friends. And you go on Starbucks runs together, you go talk about together, stuff like that.
Need support.
Yeah, is the last bit of the last little question I have here before we kind of get into if you have any kind of promotion you want to talk about, is how, as a just a regular everyday person, let's say I'm an insurance customer, how could I be better to my insurance agent? So like, is there something I could be doing as a person that needs insurance or just an average Joe that would make your job or your life a little bit easier?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not a therapist. That's a big one. Oh man, I the the amount of personal information I hear, um, it's just like sometimes for hours, and I'm talking to you and I'm trying to sell a policy to you, and so it's like I'm not gonna hang up. Other than that, just know what you're looking for, and if you don't, just ask the questions like, "Hey, I'm new. I have no idea. What do you think? What would you recommend, or what do you think would work best for my situation?" And kind of just have a little bit of knowledge because you get a lot of those guys where the bonds. I don't know if you remember that, but asking for bonds. I need to be licensed, insured, and bonded. I need a bond. I'm like, you don't need a bond. I promise you, it's Texas. There's no license in this state. You're perfectly fine. He's like, no, 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 get it for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and then they're mad because it's so expensive, or they have to pay. And it's like, well, why do I? It's like because you're getting things you don't need because you're not listening to me.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Especially when you're deal, because like a lot of times we'll get like I had a mailman on it who said, hey, if you could leave out some water for us, that's helpful, or like if you could pick up your mail, but like that's not going to apply to you, obviously. So something of like that, of like, yeah, trust me. Like I know, I understand you think you know, but I do know. So just trust me, and the be conscious of my time thing of like, hey, I'm trying to sell. I'm trying to talk to as many people as I can in a day. If you're going to sit here and complain about said job site, said boss, said rules and regulations, like, yeah, I know it all sucks, but like, got to keep this train rolling.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Last bit of the podcast here that we always like to do is something that I find really important is I want to give my guests a little time to either promote a small business they have, their own personal business, the a business they work for, side hustle, charity, cause, or just like a hey, I want people to think of this. So here's your time.
I don't think I have anything. I mean, hey, if anybody needs insurance, let me know. Commercial lines, small business. I'm your guy. I will make the process seamless.
Nice. I like that. We'll put all Matt's information in our notes. So if you guys are sitting there like, well, yeah, I need insurance, but how do I get in touch with them? I'll put down his email. I'll put down, some Instagram, something like that, so you can figure out a way to get in touch with them.
Sure, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that it's important for people to know, kind of as we said while we wrap up here, is know what insurance you need, know which insurance is important, like general liability, for example, of like, hey, if I'm telling you you're gonna need this thing, you're gonna need it. Like just trust me on this one. But yeah, man, I mean, I was trying to think of maybe like a really funny story we could lead off on or leave off on. I mean, I remember we used to have like the little basketball hoop in there. You guys still have the basketball hoop where we would like do trick shots and shoot from across the room?
Yeah, man, those were the days, weren't they?
Yeah.
No, no, everything's so much more office setting now. We have such less people, but yeah, we had some good times back there.
Can I tell a quick story? Because we had mentioned it, and if we end up cutting it out, then nobody's ever going to hear this. But hey, if we don't,
Cool.
then here you guys go. But we had mentioned about lunch breaks, about taking a break, whatever. Well, one time I got a little too bold with that taking breaks thing, and we were supposed to take a half an hour lunch. Definitely took my half an hour lunch, but definitely figured out a way to work the clock of like either clocking out a half an hour before lunch and then clocking back in and then going to lunch, or clocking out when you get back and doing that whole jazz. And got a actual call from our boss of I think at like an hour and a half mark because I was just pushing it that day. Where I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Of where are you? Get your butt back to the office, and then I actually got written up for the first time. Wild. Never had
Yeah,
happened at a job before. I figured out I don't think this is for me, man. I like I want to do freedom stuff and do what I want. But good
yeah.
old days, man. The good old days.
The good old days, man. For reals.
I want to thank you again for being on with me. Thank you for taking the time to do this for me. And like we said, go check out the notes of this YouTube video and you will find all the information for Matt to get you guys some commercial insurance if you need it.
Right on, bud. It's been a pleasure, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Jobology podcast. And thank you, Matt, for taking the time out of your day to do that for me. Before I let you guys go, a couple quick reminders. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow at Jobology Podcast on all major social media platforms. And on YouTube, make sure you guys are commenting what jobs you'd like to see next. Like we say to end every episode, make good choices.